Today, Judy Campbell joins us from Sydney, Australia. Judy is a jazz musician, a wonderful singer and arranger. She's also a choral conductor and the founder and the organizer and director of the Australian Jewish Choral Festival. But now here's a brief video about Judy's Australian Jewish Choral Festival.
My name is Judy Campbell. I'm the founding director of the Australian Jewish Choral Festival. The Australian Jewish Choral Festival aims to bring together singers from all backgrounds to experience and enjoy Jewish choral music of high quality while developing individual choral skills.
It caters to those who can and those who can't read music. It caters to those with enormous confidence and those with very little or no confidence.
You get to work with these amazing people, and the wealth of experience that comes with everyone is amazing.
Music is such a great unifying force. I mean, we have people here who are Orthodox, Conservative Reform, and also non-Jews. And so it's amazing because the common language just brings them together. And this is, I think, one of the great functions of music throughout the world, that it brings people together.
This festival is primarily for singers. Choral singers come together for 2 very intense days of singing and learning and sharing.
Many of these people may be the only people that they know that enjoy singing synagogue choir music. And here they're part of this group of 50, 60 people who all have the same passion. So it's a wonderful affirmation for them, as well as an opportunity for them to stretch, as it were.
We feel that this festival is important because it raises awareness of a grand tradition of music that is not so much heard in synagogues today.
So we are fortunate to have today with us Judy Campbell, coming to us from Sydney, Australia. Welcome, Judy.
Hi, good to be here.
So let's start with from the beginning. How did all this get started? You've had a varied musical career, including jazz performance. So what got you interested in choral music, and specifically in Jewish choral music?
Well, I started off being interested in jazz choral music, jazz vocal groups mainly, and started writing for them as well when I was still in South Africa. And my first encounter with Jewish music at all, actually, was in Australia after I migrated here in 1982. And I started singing with the North Shore Temple Emmanuel Choir. And everything was new to me. I'd never heard any of this music before. Having grown up in a non-Jewish household, very secular on every level.
Mm-hmm. And now you're the conductor of that synagogue choir?
Yes, after about 15 years, I think, of singing as a volunteer in that choir. And they offered me the job of music director at the shul. So that was how I kind of got into the Jewish choral music area. In my jazz life, I also continued to be active in vocal groups here in Sydney and to write for those vocal groups. So that was the initial leg in, as it were.
Now, you founded the Jewish Choral Festival.
Okay, that's the Australian Jewish Choral Festival. Mm-hmm. It happens every other year, so biennially. And what happened first was that I founded an organization in 2007, I think it was, Jewish Arts Incorporated. And we embarked on programs across different art forms, but my being the director of that and being, of course, mainly interested in music, or primarily interested in music, that's what gets the lion's share of my attention. And I started going to the North American Jewish Choral Festival in the early 2000s, and also to the GTM, Guild of Temple Musician conferences in America. And they were hugely eye-opening for me, both events. And so I started thinking, why can't we have something like this too? I thought, I wonder if I could get some of these fabulous presenters to come to Australia. And I started putting out feelers, and the first festival was in 2012, and our faculty for that festival was the amazing group, the Western Wind. And I had met composer and resident bass in that group, Elliot Levine, at a GTM conference, actually. And he was the one who said to me, oh, you need to go to the choral festival. So I took his advice and I went, and he was right. Eventually, we managed, maybe 4 or 5 years later, to mount the first one. And we've had 3 more since then. And of course, we had an amazing festival scheduled for this year in July, which was a huge undertaking to take a busload of singers and have a mobile festival, take everyone across Central Australia singing all along, to sing at Uluru, which for many years was known as Ayers Rock. It's still widely known as Ayers Rock. It's I believe it's the biggest single rock on planet Earth, and it has deep spiritual connections for the Aboriginal people of Australia. And it is now a national park, which is owned by an Aboriginal corporation. We had lined up, an evening of singing under the stars in the desert, on the sand, really cool festival. We had actually Dr. Noreen Green lined up as our headline conductor. And she and I had been working for months on interesting repertoire and a crossover of Aboriginal music and choral music, and made wonderful connections with Aboriginal musicians, and who gave us permission to use their music. Lined up events where we would come together, and we would sing for them, they would sing for us, then we would sing together. And one of them was in a very interesting place. And as I said, I haven't given up on this idea. There's a place out in the outback called Kubapidi. It's got this otherworldly, moonscapey feeling about it. And a lot of people live underground, caves. I mean, that sounds like cavemen, but it's not. People have made what are called dugouts, and they live underground because it gets to ridiculous levels of heat there. So there's an underground church. It's a Serbian underground church with a dynamic to die for. And we were going to perform in that Serbian church.
Getting back to the Jewish music, a part of this, I imagine that through your contacts with the Guild of Temple Musicians and the North American Jewish Choral Festival, as well as your work in the Synagogue, you must have discovered a lot of music that you hadn't been aware of.
Australia was, it was very much still in the English and European style of Jewish choral music, because the migrants who came here, that was the time frame that they arrived, was when they brought these pieces of music from the 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of Lewandowski, Mombach, Sulzer, and not much contemporary music at all. The majority of the Jewish community in Australia is Orthodox. So the progressive side of things is a lot smaller. And my first visits to these conferences and festivals just blew my mind, because I had not encountered female cantors, female choir directors. And in America, there was this whole plethora of people and music, composers that I just had no idea existed. And I was in a unique position to bring back some of this content and feed it into the progressive music world.
I remember when I was visiting and I went into some of the Orthodox synagogues, was shocked to see how many of them had professional cantors and the male choirs, some of them with professional singers, something that you absolutely do not see in the United States. And I suppose that's the influence of, as you mentioned, the British Commonwealth status, still using the Blue Book and the music by Mombach and the others, but quite beautiful music in the synagogue.
Oh yes, yes, but very much of that genre and period. Although I do notice that even some of my Orthodox colleagues are doing some music that is set for male choir, Kalbach, people like that. That was not happening 20 years ago.
Now, do you make an effort to program music by women composers?
I don't, as an ongoing thread, but I have put on some events that particularly feature women composers. It sounds strange, but I've never really thought of it. I just, if I warm to the music and it's good and it fits and aligns with what we're doing, I kind of don't think about whether the composer is male or female.
So one of the reasons we're doing this program is that female composers are highly underrepresented in the repertoire. So getting now a little bit deeper into the gender thing, first of all, do you find that being a woman, you were discriminated against in the world of conducting, either as a student or as a professional?
In the time before I got involved as a professional with Jewish music, I found it to be somewhat of a boys' club. I feel it's somewhat that way still here in Australia, in the jazz scene particularly. And so I feel that the gender bias, it might not be intentional, but I think it exists. Now in the Jewish music space, the two progressive synagogues in Sydney, both of them have female choir directors, but there are no female choir directors in any Orthodox synagogues. And I guess that's part of what my motivation has been with bringing music, Jewish music, to the wider Jewish community, because as you will remember, the demographic spread of the participants at the Jewish Choral Festival come from all over the place. It's not just from the progressive world. There are many people who belong to Orthodox synagogues who also come to the Choral Festival. I've tried to bring a broader sense of Jewish music to the broader Jewish community.
So pursuing this line a bit, do you feel that as a woman, you have a perspective that is different from that of your male colleagues?
In terms of choir direction, I have an approach that is consciously very inclusive, to build singing experiences where they can exceed their expectations of themselves. I do think that there's a female, yin yang, motherly, there's a female element to that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do feel that I bring a kind of a feminine approach to my take on choir direction.
Well, Judy, this has been great. Anything else you'd like to tell us or tell our audience that's watching?
We have here the Union for Progressive Judaism, which is an organization that is a kind of umbrella for all the progressive schools and synagogues in the region, which includes Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. There are synagogues now in that network in Beijing, Singapore, Hong Kong, several other places. And that's been quite an interesting experience because of what I have been able to bring back from the States. I've been involved in the conferences, the annual conferences of the UPJ, as it's called, for many, many years. And I convene a conference choir, which is hair-raising because you get about 5 minutes rehearsal and then it's like, you're on. And then everyone's coming from all over the place and you send them all the music beforehand and nobody looks at it. And, so that has also been quite an interesting experience for me because I've been able to contribute and learn from people all over the country and other countries. And because we are small in number compared to the States, we have to find other ways to connect and get together and make music together. So we have like a regional music network that also has a conference every second year where we try and build music capacity. And I now work with 2 cantors, one from Melbourne and one from Sydney, on the faculty delivering choral music, cantorial arts, contemporary, community singing. So that's been something that I've been able to do as a result of my experiences in America, which I'm very grateful for.
Wonderful. Well, you've done great work, Judy, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, both when we've come to visit in Sydney and when you've also joined our choir on one of our trips. And great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh.